Whatever he was dealing with, he wanted to handle it properly through legal channels. Charlotte thanked her and hung up her mind spinning whistleblower protection's evidence. Documentation, protection from retaliation, and a meeting with Harrison the morning he disappeared, a meeting he'd hidden from her. She loaded the most important boxes into her car, including the day planner and receipts. The drive home felt surreal, her suburban neighborhood looking exactly as it had that morning, yet everything had changed. Robert hadn't just gone hiking, he'd gone to meet Harrison about something serious enough to require legal counsel. As she turned onto her street, Charlotte noticed the silver Mercedes in her driveway, immediately Dr. Harrison's car. She'd recognized that customized license plate anywhere, HEALR 1. Her pulse quickened as she pulled up behind it, seeing Harrison standing by her front door talking animatedly with her neighbor. Mrs. Chen spotted her first, waving enthusiastically. "Charlotte, I was just telling Dr. Harrison you were out, he's been waiting for you." Harrison turned his familiar smile in place, but Charlotte noticed something she'd never seen before. A tightness around his eyes, a tension in his shoulders. He was wearing an expensive suit, as always, but his tie was slightly askew, unusual for the typically immaculate man. "Charlotte," he said, warmly approaching her car, "I heard about the backpack. The police contacted me this morning to inform me, asked a few routine questions since I was Robert's employer. I wanted to check on you, see how you're handling this news." Charlotte got out of her car, slowly, acutely aware of the boxes visible in her back seat. "That's kind of you, James. It's been a difficult morning." Mrs. Chen, never one to miss an opportunity for gossip, chimed in. "I told Dr. Harrison you'd gone to your storage unit spring cleaning. I assumed, though it's October." She laughed at her own observation. Charlotte saw it, then the flash of something in Harrison's eyes. When Mrs. Chen mentioned the storage unit, his smile remained, but it faltered for just a moment, like a briefly flickering light bulb. "Storage unit?" Harrison asked casually, but his voice carried an edge Charlotte had never heard before. "Sorting through old things, just some of Robert's belongings." Charlotte replied carefully, "The police returning his backpack made me want to reconnect with his memory." Harrison nodded sympathetically, but his gaze kept darting to her car. Of course, grief takes us all differently. Find anything interesting sometimes. Going through old things can bring unexpected comfort or surprises. The question felt loaded, heavy with subtext. Charlotte couldn't quite grasp. Mrs. Chen seemed oblivious, nattering on about her own late husband's belongings, but Harrison wasn't listening. His attention was fixed on Charlotte with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "Just memories," Charlotte said. "If you'll excuse me, James, it's been a long day." "Of course." Harrison stepped aside, but not before adding, "If you need anything, Charlotte, anything at all, please call. Robert was very important to me. I'd hate for his legacy to be tarnished by misunderstandings." The word hung in the air between them. Misunderstandings. Charlotte forced a smile, nodded, and walked to her front door on unsteady legs. She could feel Harrison's eyes on her back, could sense him cataloging the boxes in her car. Only after she was inside, door locked behind her, did she allowed herself to lean against the wall and take a shaking breath. Harrison's appearance so soon after the police had contacted him felt like more than coincidence. His interest in what she'd found in storage, the way his mask had slipped when Mrs. Chen mentioned where she'd been, and that parting comment about Robert's legacy and misunderstandings. Charlotte peered through her front window. Harrison was still there, now back at his car, but not leaving, cell phone pressed to his ear. His free hand gestured sharply as he spoke, nothing like the calm, collected doctor she'd known for 15 years, or thought she'd known. The day planner sat in her purse, that single entry burning in her mind. Meeting with Harrison Trail parking lot, 7 o'clock. What had Robert discovered that required whistleblower protection? What had he been planning to tell Harrison that morning, and why was Harrison so interested in what she might have found in storage? Charlotte had barely settled inside when the doorbell rang through the peephole. She saw Harrison still on her doorstep, his expression rearranged into one of gentle concern. She considered not answering, but something told her that would only make him more persistent. She opened the door part way. "Charlotte, I'm sorry to bother you again," Harrison said, his voice soft and solicitous. "I was about to leave when I realized how abrupt I must have seemed. This news about Robert's backpack has shaken me too. I was wondering, would you like to get coffee sometimes? It helps to talk with someone who knew him well, who understands what a special man he was." Every instinct screamed caution, but Charlotte also recognized an opportunity. If Harrison was involved in whatever had troubled Robert, perhaps she could learn something, I suppose. "A cup of coffee would be nice," she said carefully. "Wonderful. How about Corner Coffee on Main? I remember Robert mentioning it was your favorite spot." "That would be fine. I'll meet you there in 15 minutes. I'll drive us," Harrison offered quickly. "No sense taking 2 cars." "No, I'll drive myself," Charlotte said firmly. "I have errands to run afterward." Something flickered in Harrison's eyes, but he nodded. "Of course, I'll see you there." Charlotte closed the door and immediately pulled out her phone, texting her sister Ellen, "Meeting Dr. Harrison at Corner Coffee on Main. If you don't hear from me in 2 hours, call police." She paused, then added, "Not joking." Ellen's response was immediate. "What's going on? Are you okay? We'll explain later. Just please keep an eye on the time." The drive to Corner Coffee took only 10 minutes, but Charlotte used everyone to steady her nerves. She parked where her car was visible from the window and chose a table in the busy main area, not the cozy back corner Harrison suggested. "You remembered," Charlotte said, as Harrison returned with their drinks, a vanilla latte for her, black coffee for him. "Robert talked about you constantly," Harrison said, settling into his chair. "Vanilla lattes, hiking at sunrise, your grandson's little league games. He was devoted to you." The words should have been comforting, but something in Harrison's tone made them feel like a probe testing her defenses. Charlotte took a sip of her latte and waited. This must be so difficult. Harrison continued, the not knowing for 4 years, and now this discovery. "Have you had time to process it all?" "I'm managing," Charlotte said carefully. Harrison leaned forward, his expression sympathetic. "Going through Robert's things must be emotional. All those memories stored away. Did you find much in storage sometimes? People keep things they never mention to their spouses. Work documents, for instance." There it was. Charlotte kept her face neutral. "Mostly medical journals and patient thank you cards. Robert saved every drawing a child ever gave him." "How like him," Harrison smiled. But his fingers had started a rhythmic tap against the table. "No work files. He was always so meticulous about documentation. I'd imagine he kept copies of important paperwork." "Just the usual," Charlotte said vaguely. "Why do you ask?" "Oh, no reason. It's just that when the police called this morning, they asked if Robert had taken any patient files home. HIPAA violations, you understand." I assured them Robert would never do such a thing, but I wanted to make sure, for his reputation's sake. Charlotte noticed the slight sheen of perspiration on Harrison's forehead, despite the coffee shop's cool temperature. "The police asked about patient files. Standard questions, I'm sure." Harrison's drumming fingers picked up pace. "They also asked about his state of mind those final weeks." I told them what I observed. "Of course, did you happen to find any personal writings, journals? Sometimes people contemplating major life changes write things down." "Robert wasn't much of a journal keeper," Charlotte said, watching Harrison's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. "No, how about appointment books? He always carried that leather planner." Harrison's attempt at casual interest was failing. His voice had developed an edge. Charlotte made a decision. "Actually, I did find his day planner." Harrison's fingers stopped drumming. "Oh yes, it was interesting looking." At his final week, all those appointments wrapping up his practice, she paused, watching Harrison's face carefully. There was an entry on October 15th that confused me. October 15th. Harrison's voice was steady, but his knuckles had whitened where he gripped his coffee cup. He'd written, "Meeting with Harrison Trail, parking lot 7 a.m." But he told me he was hiking alone that morning. The transformation in Harrison's face was instant and complete. The mask of concern shattered, replaced by something Charlotte had never seen before: calculation, mixed with barely controlled panic. "Oh, that Harrison," said, his laugh forced and hollow. "Poor Robert, he was so confused that morning. Actually, he called me around 6:30, sounding agitated. He was worried about his mental state, said retirement was hitting him harder than expected. I tried to talk him out of hiking, suggested we meet to discuss his concerns, but he insisted he needed time alone on the mountain." Charlotte stared at him, this man she'd known for 15 years. Watching him construct lies as easily as breathing, Robert called. Yes, very early. Patricia can confirm." The phone woke us both. He sounded unwell, talking about pressure, about things he couldn't handle. I offered to meet him to help, but he became almost paranoid, said he needed to think. Harrison leaned forward, his voice dropping to a confidential tone. "Charlotte, I didn't want to burden you with this, but Robert had been showing signs of depression for weeks. The retirement transition was devastating for him." Depression. Charlotte heard her own voice, sharp with disbelief. Robert was excited about retirement. He had plans, trips mapped out. Sometimes people hide their true feelings, even from those closest to them. Harrison interrupted smoothly. As a physician, he would have known how to mask the symptoms. "That confusion about our meeting, writing it down when it was just a phone call, that's typical of someone under severe stress." But Charlotte knew better. She'd seen that day planner entry. Robert's handwriting was firm, precise, exactly as it always was. No confusion, no trembling letters, of a man in distress. And Robert had never lied to her, not once in 40 years. If he'd spoken to Harrison that morning, he would have mentioned it. "I should go," Charlotte said, standing abruptly. Harrison stood too quickly, his coffee cup rattling against the saucer. "Charlotte, wait. If you found anything else, any documents that might be misinterpreted, I hope you'll let me know, for Robert's sake. His reputation - Robert's reputation doesn't need protecting." Charlotte said coldly, "Excuse me." She walked out steadily, but she could feel Harrison's eyes boring into her back. In her peripheral vision, she caught sight of his reflection in the window, standing frozen by their table, his coffee cup trembling visibly in his hand. The man who had delivered Robert's eulogy, who had praised his integrity and dedication, who had promised to help her through her grief. That man was gone. In his place stood someone Charlotte didn't recognize, someone whose carefully constructed story about Robert's mental state was so obviously false, it made her stomach turn. Robert hadn't been depressed, he hadn't been confused. He'd had an appointment with Harrison that morning, and Harrison was desperate to hide why. Charlotte's hands shook as she pushed through the restroom door. The normalcy of the coffee shop, the hiss of the espresso machine, the chatter of customers felt surreal against the hammering of her heart. She locked herself in the farthest stall and pulled out her phone, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. 911. "What's your emergency?" Charlotte kept her voice to a whisper. "I'm at Corner Coffee on Main Street. I'm with someone who I believe may be dangerous. Please send someone, ma'am. Are you in immediate danger?" "I don't know. Maybe his name is Dr. James Harrison. He's asking questions about my deceased husband and he's acting erratically. I'm scared. We'll send a unit to check on you. Can you safely stay where you are? I have to go back out there or he'll get suspicious. Please hurry." Charlotte ended the call and took several deep breaths, trying to compose herself. She splashed cold water on her face, practiced a neutral expression in the mirror, and walked back out with what she hoped looked like calm. The sight that greeted her made her stomach drop. Harrison had moved from his side of the table to her side of the booth, blocking her exit. His coffee sat abandoned across the table. "There you are," he said, his smile not reaching his eyes. "I was starting to worry." Charlotte forced herself to slide into the booth, pressed against the wall. "Sorry, I'm just feeling a bit overwhelmed by everything today." "Understandable." Harrison's tone had shifted, the false sympathy replaced by something harder. "You know, I drove past your house this morning on my way to the hospital early around 6 o'clock. Noticed you had boxes out by the curb spring cleaning in October." Charlotte's mouth went dry. There had been no boxes by her curb. Don't lie to me, Charlotte." The words came out sharp, cutting through the coffee shop ambience. "I saw you loading boxes into your car at the storage unit. Mrs. Chen was quite chatty about your activities." "I should go," Charlotte said, trying to slide past him. Harrison didn't budge. "What did you find?" "Nothing, just memories, like I said." Charlotte's voice came out higher than intended. "Robert kept copies of everything, didn't he? Always so thorough, so self-righteous." The last words came out as a hiss. Charlotte pushed harder against him. "I need to leave. My sister is expecting me." For a moment, Harrison didn't move, then slowly he stood. "Of course, let me walk you to your car." It wasn't a request. Harrison's hand was on her elbow, his grip firm as he guided her toward the exit. Charlotte scanned the coffee shop, desperately hoping to catch someone's eye. But everyone was absorbed in their own conversations, their own lives. The October air hit her face as they stepped outside, and with it came a new level of fear. The parking lot was nearly empty, her car parked in the far corner where she'd thought it would be visible from the window. Now that distance felt like miles. "Where are they?" Harrison's voice had lost all pretense of friendliness. "Where are what?" His grip tightened painfully. "The documents, the files, whatever Robert kept. I know he made copies." "I don't know what you're talking about." Harrison spun her around, slamming her back against her car. "Don't play stupid with me. Robert was going to ruin everything with his attitude. 40 years of building a practice, creating jobs, helping people, and he wanted to destroy it all over some numbers on a spreadsheet." "James, you're hurting me. Where are the files?" He shook her, his face inches from hers. "Did you give them to the police, the FBI? Who else knows?" Charlotte tried to pull away, but Harrison was stronger than his silver hair suggested. "Let go of me. People saw us leave together. If anything happens to me." That's when she saw the gun. Harrison pulled it from inside, his jacket in one smooth motion, pressing it against her ribs. The metal was cold through her thin sweater. "Get in my car, James. Please, get in the car." He shoved her toward his Mercedes, the gun hidden between their bodies, but unmistakably their move. Charlotte's legs felt like water. "You don't have to do this. Whatever happened with Robert, shut up." Harrison opened the passenger door, using his body to shield the gun from any potential witnesses. "Get in, or I'll shoot you right here." Charlotte looked around desperately. The coffee shop windows reflected the afternoon sun, impossible to see through. A woman walked past on the sidewalk, absorbed in her phone. No one was coming to help. "Please," she whispered as Harrison shoved her into the seat. "I have grandchildren. You should have thought of that before you started digging." Harrison slammed the door and moved quickly to the driver's side, the gun now pointed at her, across the center console. "Hands where I can see them." Charlotte placed her shaking hands on her lap as Harrison started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot. He drove with one hand, the gun steady in the other. "You should have kept out of this," he said, his voice eerily calm. "Now should have just accepted that. Robert killed himself like everyone else did for years, Charlotte, for years of peace, and you had to ruin it. You killed him."